What's up, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and this is Retro Flashforward, showcasing gaming's roots in the current generation. So I got another interesting title to show you guys today. I got a review code for this the other day. This is Blood Alloy Reborn, which is a retro-looking and inspired to a certain degree arena combat score attack game. And it has kind of an interesting history behind it. So this is developed by Super Suppressive Fire Games. Sorry about that. And it is an independent developer comprised largely of ex-Harmonix people, which is kind of interesting. Needless to say, this is very different from the type of stuff Harmonix has made in the past. And it was originally supposed to be a full-fledged Metroidvania game. They actually did a Kickstarter for it, and that Kickstarter unfortunately failed. So they weren't able to fund their sort of full vision for the game. But what they have decided to do instead is they decided to work on the combat mechanics and really polish those up, and then release this little standalone score attack game to demonstrate those mechanics and sort of get people familiar with the universe and the ideas they were going for. It's a $10 game, and the idea is that this will get funneled back into the development of the full-fledged Metroidvania game they are trying to make. So basically they're trying another method in order to fund that while also giving something for people to play in the meantime. Kind of a cool idea, right? Well, yeah, this game has some really cool ideas and definitely a really nice combat system, but it's got some execution problems. So first off, I am playing this with an Xbox 360 controller because my Xbox One controller with the wireless adapter does not work at all with this. And even if you're using it wired, it's hit and miss whether or not it's going to work properly. In addition to that, while this game does play okay with a keyboard and mouse, though it's a little confusing because of all the buttons, we'll get to that, this game does not lock the cursor to the game application window, so if you're running dual monitors like I am, you will frequently click out of the game, and the game keeps running in the background. Little bit of a problem there. Now, to be fair, I have been in contact with the developer about those issues, and he has assured me that they are being worked on and patches will come to fix those issues later. So that's fine, but just to let you know, at time of recording, those issues do persist, so be aware of that. I have no reason to doubt that the developer will get those fixed, but just so you know, it is still a thing. So, okay, so here it is. So this game only has 3 levels, but they're sort of large arena levels. And it's a score attack game, and it has a progression system that will unlock the other levels in addition to different is where this game really shines. It is very, very simple, but well, the core game idea is very, very simple, but this combat system is anything but, and that's definitely a good thing. Another little technical thing I'm going to mention here as well that's kind of frustrating is this game has really, really good background music that I think fuels the action very well, but it's not very well mixed. Some of the songs are a lot louder than the in-game sound effects, and basically drown out the gameplay and will kind of blow your ears out if you have your headset turned up loud. But other ones are mixed more normally. Not quite sure what happens with that, or what the deal is with that. I do hope that's something they can correct easily, because, yeah, unmixed music can really be a headache, literally, in some cases. So, alright. So you're seeing sort of the core idea here. So you do have some weapons that you can choose that you unlock with progression in time. You have a gun, you have a sword, as you can see here, and you have some almost Devil May Cry-like acrobatic abilities, and the only way you're going to do well in this game is if you really learn how to utilize them all effectively. So, there is a tutorial in this game, but that's another thing that's sadly kind of lacking. The tutorial teaches you some of the basic movement mechanics, and I highly recommend going through it because you're absolutely going to need that, but it doesn't teach you a lot of the other things, like how to do, for example, there's a sort of a bonus challenge in this game that involves killing enemies with what they call reflected shots. I've never done a reflected shot yet, and I don't know how to. The game never explained it to me. If I have done it, it's been by accident, and I probably haven't realized it, which is a bit of a problem. But so the core idea here, and this is why playing this game with a keyboard can be a little confusing, because that's another problem. You can't rebind any controls in this game. Again, this happens in so many games that I don't know if it's some kind of technical challenge or whatnot, but yeah, PC game in 2016, you should definitely be able to rebind your controls. But there are so many different buttons that you have to look after in this game that it's actually a little harder to play this with a keyboard just because of keeping track of all the different keys. On a controller, it's much, much easier. A controller is definitely what I would recommend if you're going to play Blood Ally Reborn. So, yeah, so you've got your sword, you've got your gun, you've got various jump abilities. You can double jump in this, and as you can see, you can get yourself a fairly significant jump. And by holding down the left trigger, you can also do this. So you can do this kind of almost Vanquish-like slide. I don't know how many of you remember Vanquish from the 360 and PS3. That was a damn good game, that. But you can do this sort of Vanquish slide, and you can do this both along the floor and also up walls, like this. And along ceilings, and it's pretty cool. And you also get access to additional abilities when you are sliding. So if you do that and then press the trigger, you fire what's called your seeker weapon. So you may have seen when I was in the starting menu there picking my equipment, the seeker weapon is, they're basically missile-likes, and there's different types that have different sort of traits and abilities and power. And there's sort of trade-offs for all of those. If you want something that has more projectiles or is faster, then it's going to have less oomph per hit than some of the other ones were. So if you're sliding and you press your right trigger, you can launch those off. If you're sliding and press the right bumper, you do a sword swing that shoots that sort of shockwave thing out. That's kind of how I thought reflected shots work, but it doesn't seem to be. But I could be wrong about that. I'm not 100% sure. In addition to that, if you want to kill a bunch of guys who are in front of you quickly, and you're not aiming the wrong way, derp, you can press the B button, which will do a sort of charged up shockwave swing attack like that will do a lot of damage to the enemies. However, it takes a while to charge that up, and if you get interrupted part way, then you'll lose it, as you saw there. And all of these attacks that are anything but your gun will deplete your energy. So, all right, let's restart this again. So you see you've got your health up top there, which is the pink bar, and you've got the blue bar, which is your energy. So your energy auto-recharges. However, if you deplete it entirely, then you can't use anything that requires it until it fully recharges. So especially when things get hairy, energy management is key. If you don't ever want to deplete that, because if you do, you're gonna kind of screw yourself out of difficult situations. And that's the thing with this. So this is an endless type of environment here. So the enemies continue to respawn indefinitely, and it gets tougher as you go. So it's like a lot of arena games. The challenge amps up the longer you survive, basically. So needless to say, using a lot of these special moves and things like that will become absolutely critical later on. And if you don't want to get taken out early, you've got to learn how to manage your energy to handle those situations. So that's kind of the core concept. And as I said, this is a score attack game. So you may see that we have two different multipliers in the upper right there. So those are key as well. So the top one is an up to 10 times multiplier that just goes up as you kill enemies in rapid succession. Pretty simple, right? So the bottom one is where things get a little bit more interesting. The bottom one is supposed to be kind of a style meter. So if any of you have ever played the Devil May Cry series, you know how that game rewards you additional score based on basically how cool you're being. Well, that's essentially what this one does. That little multiplier will go up in 0.1 increments the more you mix up your attacks, is supposed to be the idea. So you don't want to just sit there constantly firing your gun or swinging your sword. You want to be firing the gun and swinging the sword and jumping and gliding or grinding around and using your special attacks and all those other different things. If you mix those things up, that multiplier will go up and will work in concert with the up to 10 times just rapid kill multiplier, and that's how you really maximize your score. So you want to keep both of those up as high as you can. When you hit 10 times on that multiplier, you probably saw those guys in those weird little pod things. So yeah, when you hit 10 times multiplier, one of those randomly spawns, which is an alternative soldier you have to rescue. I don't know why that's necessary. The game, this game essentially this particular iteration of Blood Alloy essentially has no story, so it doesn't really explain that. But you want to do that because not only do they give you more points, this is the only way you get your health back. I don't know, again, canonically why this is the case, but if you free one of those guys, you get health back, and that is the only way you get health back, so it's critical. And the thing is, when one of those guys appears on the map, if you don't take them out, if you don't go and release them within a certain amount of time, they will blow up and you'll lose them. So you gotta move. When you see that arrow appear on the screen, and that's why their position is telegraphed with that sort of red arrow that pops up, if you don't go after them toot sweet, then you're going to be kind of screwed on that, and you really want to get those guys back as quick as possible. If you are able to hold a 10 times multiplier, another one of those pods will appear after a set period of time, but they won't appear indefinitely. But you also don't have to reset your combo and then build it back up again to get one to come back. If you can maintain 10, which I have done, though it's not easy, then they will eventually spawn again, and you have the ability to sort of just keep rescuing those guys. And that's really what you want. You want to get those as much as possible. So you see there's the arrow again, and again, because especially now because I'm low on health, I really want to get up there ASAP. But I took too long and he disappeared. Now, you may have thought, huh, that happened way quicker than it did the last time. Yeah, sometimes when those guys appear, they seem to die very quickly. I'm not sure if that's a randomly chosen value or if there's something else I did that made that happen, but I've had that happen before where I've gotten towards a guy very quick and then I still somehow don't get to him in time. I don't really understand that. So one other thing I missed showing you here as well, if you hold down your gun button while you're standing still, it will build up sort of like Metroid or R-Type style. Now the thing with this is that it will only charge when you're standing still, and when you start to move, it will drop one level. So you may have seen there that it can charge up to 3 times, and each time is a little bit more powerful, and in addition, the full charge... shoot, I missed it there. The full charge will basically shoot out this huge beam that covers a very wide area and that will actually kick you back a little bit. So the thing with that is if you want to use that massive one, you have to take kind of a big risk because you have to stand still. As soon as you move, any charge that you've accumulated minus 1 level will maintain. So if I charge this up to full blast, shoot. If I charge this up to full blast and then I start to move, it will drop down to 1 level below full blast. If you want to maintain full blast, you've got to stand perfectly still. And in later sections of these levels, that's actually pretty rough because, well, obviously, as you've been able to see, standing still is a recipe for quick death, needless to say. So I've unlocked the second level, which is the jungle. You unlock the third level, which is city at level 14. We're gonna go in here. So this level is very, very different, needless to say. It's a different, totally different art, but it's also a completely different level. Now, these levels are static. They're not procedurally generated or anything like that. But this level, in terms of places you can jump to and places you can find enemies, and especially where those soldiers you have to rescue will spawn in, is quite a bit more involved and quite a bit more complicated than the other one. It gives you opportunities to make very different kinds of combos and use sort of different skills and things like that, or use your skills in a different way, I guess, which is very neat. But at the same time, it's definitely trickier to navigate. A key thing to scoring high in this game is absolutely remembering the layout of the levels. If you don't practice and memorize, you just won't do as well because you're going to spend a lot of your time sort of aimlessly flailing around going, oh, where the heck is this? Where am I going? I don't know. So you got to be careful about that. But and this is sort of the core concept of it. As you progress through the game's levels, you will access, or the game's like progression levels, character levels, you'll unlock additional levels like this to play, and more guns that you can mix and match to sort of get used to, or to sort of figure out the best layout for you, I guess you'd say. So there's a little bit of customization there, which is cool. It's not as deep as I'd like, but for a relatively small game, it's not bad. And the guns and the items do feel different, and they do give you different abilities that suit different play styles. There are ones that are more suited to being a more defensive character, and ones that definitely are suited to being more guns out, go in blazing. So you have options there, which is nice. And your idea is to basically maximize your score, which in turn gives you more progression, which in turn unlocks more stuff. So it's a fairly familiar idea, right? As you can see, my score is going up much slower in this level because I still haven't fully memorized the layout of it, and it's just being a little trickier. A lot of this stuff, unfortunately, you're going to have to figure out on your own. As I said, the tutorial in this game is not comprehensive. And maybe that was their intent. Maybe they wanted you to figure things out on your own. But for example here, my health is low, and you see how it says attain a 10 times multiplier so you can heal? I had to figure out what that did on its own. It didn't explain in the tutorial that attaining a 10 times multiplier unlocks one of the soldiers I have to rescue, and therefore gives me more health. It does explain the whole soldier thing in the tutorial, but it doesn't explain that that's how you get more health. I get the whole idea of giving people the sense of discovery and having them want to figure stuff out on their own. Like, that's cool, but in this case, when it comes to getting your health back, that to me feels rather critical. I don't know. You know, that's just me, perhaps. Perhaps this game's biggest fault, I think, is that there's no online leaderboards. I'm not sure why. This game is on Steam. It actually doesn't even have Steam achievements right now, though the developer has said that's coming, so maybe online leaderboards are coming too. But it seems like in a score attack game like this, it frankly to me seems a pretty large oversight to not have online leaderboard capability. Like, the only person you're competing with right now in this game is yourself. And you're also only competing against your highest score. There's no actual high score table or ranking. It's literally just, it shows you on a per level basis what your best score is, and your goal is to beat that. Now, that's not necessarily a big deal. Having a ranking is not the end of the world. I mean, really, you're always aiming for, you know, in these games, you're always aiming for the top spot, right? So, forgive me if I'm also not playing this as well as I could be. Playing a game and commentating is hard enough. Playing a Twitch-based, combo-based game like this when commentating is way harder, as it turns out. So yeah, that's a bummer for me. The lack of online leaderboards is a real shame. Now, a lot of people, I will grant you that there actually are a lot of people in the world who play score attack games like this who are not interested in online leaderboards. In particular, because the people who dominate the top of online leaderboards, depending on the game, are either people who are just exceedingly skilled, more skilled than your average person, or are douchebags using cheat engine who completely ruin the scoreboards for everyone else because some devs just don't police their leaderboards properly against that stuff. Now, and there's a lot of people who just say, no, I don't want that, I'm only going to play against myself anyway. And that's cool. If you're one of those people, then that omission won't bother you. I like having online leaderboards, one, because I like to be able to see what the best people in the world are doing. Personally, I think the best online leaderboards are ones that allow replays, like Double Daggers does. But I also just like being able to compare against my friends. If it's a game that some of my friends have bought, I like being able to compare against those people specifically, try that again, because the people who are on my friends list often tend to have similar skill level to me, which means that I have the ability to compete with them, and if I practice, there's a good chance I can top them, and it creates that element of friendly competition, which is what I really love about leaderboards. And I think that would have been really good. I would really like to see this game get online leaderboards. If they are something that's important to you, then that may really diminish the value proposition of this game for you. In my case, it's not the end of the world, but when you have games like Double Daggers that actually cost less than this and do have that functionality and replays, it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty glaring omission in a modern score attack title, if you ask me. So I do hope we see more of that. This game is eventually coming to the Wii U, the Xbox One, and the PS4 apparently too, and I'm not sure if those platforms actually require online leaderboards anymore. They used to, at least the 360 used to. So maybe at that point when they release those versions, they will have online leaderboards, and maybe we'll be propagating those changes back to the PC version. I would definitely like to see that for sure. But you sort of get the core idea here. The goal of this game is to master this combat system, practice, and get yourself good, and max out the progression, and just try to make the best score you can. And for a lot of people, that's cool. This, for a $10 game, that may be enough for some. It may not be for others. This game really has no story, though it is supposed to be the forerunner for a universe that is due to have a story in it, I guess, at some point. And so that may be a problem for some people. This is going after a very specific niche of player. And if you're not one of those people, you're probably not going to like it. For me personally, this is a niche I enjoy. Little games like this, I'm very happy to fire up once in a while, and, I don't play them super competitively, but I have a whole bunch of these types of things on my system. This falls into the same category as shmups for me in terms of games that I don't play obsessively, but once in a while when I don't want to dive into something super complicated, I'll just fire this up for half an hour or so, get a couple of scores, do a couple of rounds, and it's kind of like pinball for me, where sometimes you'll have a game that goes really, really well, and other times you'll just be terrible. But I get my little time in, I have some fun, you know, I spend some energy doing that, and I'm like, all right, that was cool. This definitely falls into that category. It's not necessarily the first game I would go to in a lot of cases because of things like lacking online leaderboards and features like that I've come to expect in a lot of these games. But it's still good enough that I would, you know, it may not always be my first choice, but when I don't want to play a shmup, maybe I do want to play a game that's more of a visceral hack and slash combat feel, and this does that exceedingly well. Like, for the shortcomings that this game does have, it's very clear that the combat system is where they put most of their effort, and it came out really well. Designing a combat system, especially one that has melee and firearms in it, and making it work, it's not easy. It's very difficult to make one that feels responsive, feels like it's doing what you ask, and gives you an appropriate level of badassery out of it, and this does that. Like, the controls feel tight, it doesn't feel like it's lagging, it doesn't feel like it's not doing what I ask. When I lose at this game, I never have really gotten mad at it, because I've always felt... It's very rare when games come out that make you feel like when you lose, it's entirely your own fault. Like, a lot of people will make that comparison with games like Dark Souls. I personally don't see that with Dark Souls a lot. I think Dark Souls plays very cheap in a lot of ways. And this game is challenging, and because the enemy spawn patterns are random, there are cases where the gods of RNG will favor you, and you will just naturally have a better run than you would have otherwise because the game chose to be nice to you. But the controls in this game and the way the combat system works never makes you feel like it's fighting against you. It never makes you feel like you're at battle with the core concepts in addition to your enemies. It just makes you feel like it makes you feel like the control method and the combat system is working with you, not against you, and that it's not another foe. Games that make it feel like another foe have kind of failed at a core level, if you ask me. And this doesn't do that. So I really do enjoy that of it. And there's a lot of potential here. I do hope this does well enough to get the full Blood Alloy Metroidvania that Suppressive Fire was aiming for. I mean, I like good Metroidvania that's done well and has interesting themes, and this is sort of a cyberpunky thing, which, I mean, we've talked a lot lately about me and Cyberpunk, how I love that stuff, so I would really love, if we could get another Axiom Verge level experience, that would be super rad. So I hope it does well for that, but this game, as it is presented right now, is definitely not for everyone, and if you do have an Xbox One controller or dual monitors and want to play with a keyboard and mouse, I would wait until they get some patches out. I think those are coming pretty soon. The developer seems very interested in supporting this game extensively, which is very good to know, but again, if you buy this game right now and you have you have dual monitors and an Xbox One controller, well, it's not going to work too well for you. And that's just kind of the way of it, unfortunately. But also, there are resolution options for this game. This is a Unity engine game, and some Unity engine games use a little launcher that runs before the game where you can pick your resolution. That's the case here. So the lack of resolution options here, don't be put off by that. You can run this game in whatever resolution you choose. You're not locked to your default monitor. So I don't know what's going on with this menu here. That's never happened before, but so you can sort of pick these things here. So you can see here, there's even central core options that you can pick. So tank 1, for example, less energy but more health. That could be useful, especially in certain types of arenas. Let's go back to the factory here and we'll do that. So yeah, that's basically the idea here. It's a simple concept. I mean, this was originally supposed to be a much more grandiose idea, and I do really respect the fact that rather than just give up when their Kickstarter failed, Suppressive Fire went, well, look, what can we do with this to still get something out to show people why this idea is cool and maybe maybe generate some buzz and excitement and hopefully be able to make the game that we've wanted. So they were innovative and they did that, and they focused on the systems that they had in place and polished them up and released a game that is a lot less than what it was supposed to be and is certainly not flawless, especially from a technical perspective, but the combat just feels so damn good. If this game added online leaderboards, I'd pretty much be recommending it without hesitation. For right now, other than those technical limitations, I would say if online leaderboards are a concern for you, then you probably want to wait until they either add them or then it just might not be for you. But if you're someone who mostly wants to play for the interest of challenging yourself rather than competing against other people, then there's a lot to like here. I've had a lot of fun with this combat system, and I'll probably put a bunch more time into this game. It may not always be top of my list for games I play when I just want that little half-hour sort of visceral arcade thrill thing, but it'll definitely be in the rotation. It's a cool idea, and I hope they keep supporting this, and I hope it does do well enough to give them that Metroidvania, because that would be really, really excellent if it happens. So yeah, that is Blood Alloy Reborn, developed by Suppressive Fire Games and published by, I think I'm remembering this name right, Nikidu or Nikidu Games? Yeah, I've never heard of them, but that's who's publishing this anyway. This is the PC version. It is also eventually due to come to the Wii U, the Xbox One, and the PlayStation 4. You got to be into what it offers. I say that with a lot of games, but it's extra true in this case. If you're the type of person for whom this core system outweighs the flaws and omissions, then absolutely pick it up. If what is not in here is important to you, then maybe wait a little bit, and that stuff may come eventually. My name is Parallax Abstraction. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. And, well, I will see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody.